Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the 1001 books tag, which was created by Sandy at Ms. Reads a Lot. I'll be linking to her video and channel in the description box below, and so let's just get down with it. 1001 lists. Do you follow any book lists? It can be prize list or a challenge like the Rory Gilmore challenge, which I have never heard of. I hate the Gilmore girls, sorry not sorry. Sometimes I'll look at lists of awards, like for example the Sidney Taylor Jewish Book Award, which is one of my dreams to win, the Newbery and the Nobel Prize, but I don't religiously stay current with them because I just don't read a lot of contemporary novels. That's just not what my personal reading tastes are, but I do read a lot of contemporary nonfiction and memoir. Like usually I might look at them long after the latest winners are awarded, just, out of curiosity and things like that, but, that's just not something I've ever really thought to do, or at least not for a very long time. 1001 books. Approximately how many physical books do you currently own? How many ebooks? If I had to guess, I would say maybe 5 to 10 ebooks. It's been a long time since I've used my e-reader, and it does need to be recharged. Like off the top of my head, I remember I have 5 Little Peppers Abroad, 3 Daves, which was written by one of my blogging buddies. It's a fun, cute, contemporary historical romance set in the 1980s. Unfortunately, she updated it a few years ago to have a contemporary setting, which, I don't really agree with. I love the 1980s. That was the decade I grew up in, and I loved all the, topical references to music and clothes and such. And I also have the Zookeeper's Wife, which my parents gave me as an ebook as a gift for my birthday or Hanukkah a number of years ago. And I'm probably kind of hypocritical because I have published all of my own books as ebooks before I put them into like print editions, but that's just not something I read a lot of. I prefer just the paperback or the hardcover you can hold in your hands and physically read. And if I had to guess, I would say maybe over 1,000 books. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned in many videos, 99% of my books and all my other possessions have been in storage in Albany, New York, 900 miles away for almost 5 years now. It's a really long, infuriating story. My little brother was supposed to help me with shipping my things down. He should have done this long ago, but he only basically shipped my irreplaceable notebooks, like my journals and rough drafts and stuff of books which cannot be replaced. And then he gave up. Unfortunately, he has chosen his toxic menage a trois and his political ideology over treating me like a decent human being. So I will have to have some friends who still live up there help me with shipping my books down, because I obviously need all of them before I make Aliyah, move to Israel, God willing, in autumn or winter. And I really would like to pay a little bit extra to have a third suitcase on the plane with me, so I can have more books with me that are really special, because I've been away for them for so long, and I really, really miss these books. Some of them were just special and important, but unfortunately I'm not in my own home and there's limited space here, so I can't really have all the things I used to. But that's a whole story for another video, like a very personal story. 1001 books read. Approximately how many books have you read in your lifetime? Do you keep track? If I had to guess, I would say several thousand. I used to be a lot better about, writing in my journals over the years, like all the different books I was reading, for school and my own personal enjoyment and things like that. But that's not really something I do so religiously anymore. But, if I had to guess, just remembering, because I do have an elephantine memory, definitely at least several thousand books. I probably couldn't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I could probably, if I sat down and started, writing a list, it would definitely probably be over 1,000 if I, took a long time and just remembered into the crevices of memory everything I have ever read. 1001 Arabian Nights. Have you read any story from the Arabian Nights? Do you have a favorite? If you haven't read it, do you want to? Now, I've seen several silent films based on the Arabian Nights, like, for example, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, which is the oldest known surviving animated film. It's a beautiful silhouette animation and beautiful hand colored frames. It's just absolutely a lovely, sweet, beautiful story. I would highly recommend this film. And it was also directed by a woman, Lottie Reiniger, and she was anti-Nazi, one of the good Germans. She left Germany after they came to power. The Thief of Baghdad, which stars the handsome Douglas Fairbanks Sr., who's one of my favorite male actors of the silent era. That's a wonderful, wonderful film I would also highly recommend. And Waxworks, which is German expressionism. Conrad Veidt stars in at least one of the frame stories. It's it's not one consistent story. It's several, I think 4 stories, if I remember correctly, throughout the film, based on wax figures in a traveling show in the circus coming to life. It's a great horror film, and those are all, based on or like inspired by the Arabian Nights, and I do highly recommend all those films. But I don't think I've actually read anything from the actual book except the introductory frame story and maybe some excerpts here and there. But I would really like to read that because I know that's, a really important, like, great world literature book that many people, like, they should read if they're educated. 1001 Flavors. Do you have a favorite food or flavor? No, I absolutely love Indian food. Like, the spices are just so wonderful. And I've mentioned in several previous videos, I've loved like Indian history, culture, like language, music, religion, mythology for like since I was 14 years old. And I'm studying the Indian subcontinent in my global studies class, my freshwoman year of high school, and even like before that in the 8th grade when I first heard the Beatles song "Within You, Without You," it was like this like magical, invisible door to another world opened up with that groovy Indian music, and I just started getting more interested in it. It's just something I've been fascinated by ever since. And as I've also mentioned several times previously, India is the only major world nation that has no real history of anti-Semitism, and for that reason, many Indians feel a very close relationship with the land of Israel and the Jewish people because we have never, been antagonistic, and we also have like many things in common. Like, for example, we're both ethno-religious groups, not just like a religion or like an ethnic group. And I've also noticed many anti-Semites are extremely Hindu-phobic and anti-Indian, so we unfortunately also have that in common as well. And I also love Thai food. I also love the the spices, particularly the spicy peanut sauce, and how like a lot of it is vegetarian. My buddy Jay introduced me to it. My senior year of UMass, we lived at the Hillel house that year, and he was vegan at the time. Unfortunately, he like gave that diet up after we graduated because it was very difficult to be vegan at the time in 2002. But he introduced us to this groovy restaurant called Amber Waves in Amherst. We could walk there from Hillel. We could basically like walk pretty much anywhere in Amherst from where we lived and from the college. It's just a great little walking town in New England, and I absolutely loved all the food at Amber Waves. Unfortunately, I think it's gone out of business, but that introduced me to a great love of Thai food, and I've really enjoyed Thai food ever since. And now I also love like Italian food, although since I don't really like eat dairy products much anymore, unfortunately, since I'm no longer in my house, I no longer have the option of making vegan Italian food like I used to. Like, for example, I would make vegan lasagna and like eggplant parmesan and a few like other Italian foods that traditionally have a lot of cheese in them. But there are still some Italian foods I can eat, and unfortunately I have little choice but to eat them with the cheese because I'm not in my own house. But God willing, as soon as I'm on my own again, I will resume eating like vegan Italian foods and just maybe foods that have like goat cheese instead of the cow cheese in it. And my dietary history and interests are a topic for another video. But I really do love lots of Italian food. I'm part Southern Italian in my own family. I'm 1/8 Italian. My one of my great grandfathers, his family came from Italy. He wasn't born there himself, but his parents and oldest siblings were. And if you like look at me like standing up or in person, you would see like below my shoulders, it's a very Southern Italian body. I'm short and big boned. My Italian body saved my life when I had my car accident because I had less distance to fall and more flesh to cushion the impact. And I also love Mexican food. Again, I just love spicy stuff, and people like a lot of Americans, they're very used to Mexican food because we live so close to them, and there are all these Mexican restaurants. And I do love vegan vegetarian tacos and other Mexican food. And I also love Middle Eastern food, like particularly falafel. I love falafel. When I lived in my own home, I would bake it in the oven and just like brush it with olive oil and flip it over instead of frying it in hot oil, and just so many other wonderful like Middle Eastern things, like for example, hummus, and like kind of related like Greek food, particularly Greek salad. And I'm really looking forward to getting to eat like falafel regularly, and all sorts of other wonderful Middle Eastern food when I have moved to Israel. I also love Japanese food. I've been a big Nipponophile, lover of Japanese like culture, history, etc. since I was 14 in the summer of 1994, and I love sushi and so many other cool Japanese foods, and just like pretty much like everything about Japanese history and culture. So it's just, I'm not only sticking to the own cuisine I'm familiar with. I just love eating cuisine from all over the world. Next question: 1001 pages. Have you ever read a book that is over 1001 pages? Is there one that you would recommend and is worth the time? What is the longest book you have read? Now, off the top of my head, I wouldn't say like the longest necessarily, I know, but definitely like War and Peace is one of the longest. I called it like the book with like the word the in all capital letters in my journals. Like, oh, I'm finally reading the book, or I finished the book today. I read it in June 2004. I started reading on June 1st, and it took me 19 days to read. I still feel kind of embarrassed. It took me that long. I had hoped it would take like 2 weeks minimum, because I just, read really fast, and like long door stoppers are totally no big deal for me. But unfortunately, it just took longer than I expected and hoped for. And when I do reread it, I'm going to skip the final epilogue, just Tolstoy rambling on and on about like God knows what, like historical forces that had absolutely nothing to do with anything at all that happened in the novel. Like, that should have been like totally cut out. And the characters just came alive for me, both the ones I liked, like for example Pierre. I absolutely loved him. I could really like picture this like dude with like huge hands and like bumbling around, and just all the fun, like interesting, witty things he does throughout the novel. And like some characters I hated, like that annoying religious fanatic Princess Maria. Ugh. And her father was even worse. I hated him so much. I was hoping he would lose his remaining marbles when Napoleon invaded, ride off to battle and promptly like get killed in war. That was just how much I despised this guy. And I hated Pierre's first wife, Elaine. She was just such a toffee-nosed nitwit. And just so many other characters throughout the book came alive for me. But unfortunately, I hated the ending. It just left such a bitter taste in my mouth. Like one of my least favorite like endings ever. Like one of the other least favorite endings for me is The Hodge by Leon Uris. That's much under 1,000 pages, like 500 some, if I remember correctly. But it's like everything in the book was going so well, and then everything just started unraveling in the last 50 pages, and like characters started acting in these really like weird ways that wasn't in like common with the way they had been developed previously. It's like Mr. Uris's like editors told him like this book is too long or whatever, you need to wrap it up, and so he just finished it like in the middle of the actual story, and he just like pulling the plug on it, and it was just like horrible ending. And another one I have read that is over 1001 pages is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. And I know like some people like want to cancel these like books that have aspects that haven't exactly aged well, to say the least, but I absolutely loved it when I read it. This isn't the copy I read. My original copy I read is a mass market paperback, again in storage 900 miles away, with a picture of Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable from the 1939 film on the cover, but with a red cover on the background. This is a hardcover from the first year of publication, but not the original print from 1936, which I got at Mr. K's bookstore, a local chain in some U.S. South cities. And the original owner wrote her name in it, and I got it on Erev Yom Kippur last year. It was really fun to find it on the shelves in the back of the store with like interesting, like valuable paperbacks. This is the original owner. Unfortunately, I don't know what her real first name is. This was the era when like women often like passively identify themselves as Mrs. Husband's full name, which like I freaking hate that. Custom nails on chalkboard. And unfortunately, that's just how things were for most people. And I'm really looking forward to reading this in a much more comfortable trim size this time around, because that now that I'm over 40, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So, and it's more comfortable for me to like read something that's not a tiny mass market paperback with words like practically falling into the gutter. I should have a future video about formatting books, both for your own, like if you're an indie author, or for like if you're just a reader, the kinds of like formatting of a book that's most comfortable for your eyes to read and for you to hold in your hand. And I'm strongly considering on taking this as my thing to read on the plane when I make Aliyah, or maybe if I have enough time and money to make a pilot trip before I make Aliyah. But I am really looking forward to reading this. It's obviously there are some like inexcusable things in the book, like for example it cheerleads for the KKK, and it uses the N-word a lot, not just in dialogue but in the actual narrative. And there are definitely like a lot of racist things, and it is there's some really creepy age differences that weren't like normal even for that era. But you need to like consider the actual heart of the story, not just like these like other things which unfortunately could not be helped. That was just the kind of society Margaret Mitchell had grown up in. She didn't know any like counter examples, and she's just repeating the stories she had heard from her older relatives, and it would be a completely different story if like Scarlet were like a poor white cracker. I know like that's considered like a racist term, but that was like the term they would have used in that era. Or if like Scarlet were, like a free black woman, or like a slave, or just, something else. It's the exact story it is because of the socioeconomic class and the ethnic group she comes from, So, like it or not, this is the story, and it's like really, really wonderful. I would highly, highly recommend this book to you. And like, don't let the like controversies or whatever stop you. You need to read books in their historical context and intent instead of judging them entirely by 21st century standards. Now, 1001 buckets. Do you have a non-bookish bucket list? What is one thing on the list? Now, I love traveling. Hopefully, I will have my passport soon. I would have had a new passport by now, but there's like some health situation with my mother, and like masking concerns like that. It's a long story, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to get to the passport office because of that. But hopefully, very, very soon, I will be at liberty to go there. And I really am looking forward to making up for lost time and traveling. I would love to travel to most places in Europe, like Italy, where part of my family comes from, like Germany. Well, obviously, I have wanted to go to Russia for many years. I've been a Russophile since like late '92, but unfortunately, it's basically like a fascist country at this point, and I don't know if I would really feel safe. And obviously, because of what they're doing to the Ukrainians, that's another reason I feel like it's not really responsible or appropriate to go to that country now. But there are like a lot of other countries in like Europe I'm really looking forward to visiting, like Hungary, Estonia, the Netherlands, like maybe Switzerland or Austria. I have physically been in Vienna, but we didn't get off the plane, and Greece, and just so many other wonderful places I've like read about and loved for years. And in Asia, I would love to go to like Japan and maybe Korea or Vietnam and Thailand, Cambodia, just see the old like Buddhist architecture and things like that, and maybe like travel a little bit in Africa and Australia. I've wanted to go there for years, and Canada, and even like within the United States, there are so many different places I would love to visit. And before I make Aliyah, like it will be too expensive to keep flying back and forth, I'd love to go out and see the graves, the cemeteries of all the famous actors from the golden age of Hollywood. There, and like several cemeteries in the Los Angeles area. Like for example, like I know some of the Three Stooges are in a Jewish cemetery, and a lot of people are in Hollywood Forever, and there might, I think, like 2 or 3 other main cemeteries, and it would be like really fun to like pay my respects to them before I leave. Particularly my favorite actor, Rudolph Valentino. His crypt is reputed to be like notoriously haunted. Like for example, weird light shows up in photographs, and people feel like mysterious coldness, and a number of female visitors have reported feeling phantom kisses when they're there. So that would be like really interesting to go there and see if that happens to me. That would be just really like cool and an interesting story to tell. And there's so many other places in the world I want to travel. Like the only place I cannot good conscience travel would be to Turkey, because their government is still denying the Armenian genocide over 100 years later, and I really do not like feel like I cannot go to that country until they finally own up to what they did. Of course, obviously individual Turks are innocent. Like some of them like realize what their government did, and they don't like agree with the denial at all. But this is what the government does, and I'm not going to reward them with my money or tourism until they finally admit what they did, and that was genocide. And another thing on my bucket list are my love of languages, becoming more fluent in several languages. I have studied in other languages. I'm really interested in studying on my own as well, and have never studied before. I know formally I have studied Spanish for 7 years. I studied French. It wasn't really like so like structured. In 5th grade we did it, and then I studied it again my junior year of high school. I didn't really want to study it. I was scheduled to take Latin, but unfortunately we moved, as I've mentioned in a few videos. I studied Italian my senior year of high school. I took to it like lightning. I absolutely loved it. I began studying Russian on my own informally when I was 13 years old. I think it took about a month for me to learn the Cyrillic alphabet print only, and I finally had to suck it up and learn Russian cursive when I was 20. I only began taking it formally when I transferred to UMass my junior year of university, and like Professor Lake said, look, everyone in Russia uses cursive. Like you look like a little kid if you print. That's just for books and like teaching kids and like instructional volumes and dictionaries and such. So I finally had to suck it up and learn Russian Cyrillic cursive because I have been held back at 13 because many of the letters look a lot different than the printed version. So I figured, like, why bother? But now like 99% of the writing in Russian I do is in cursive, and I've also formally studied Czech. I took a half semester class in Czech history and culture, and like some of us who wanted could stay behind class with Professor Mark. He was a native Czech person, and we learned the language with him. I did get some, books for learning Czech, and I've also took a class in ASL at a local library, and I've like studied that on my own as well. I know the finger alphabet and such. That's, I think, like 6th or 7th alphabet I've ever learned. And I've done informal study of German, like Russian, as I mentioned, in addition to formal study, like Italian in addition to learning it in school, Latin, Estonian, Hungarian, Japanese, Polish, Hebrew, although technically I was, taught to read the Hebrew alphabet when I was like reclaiming my spiritual birthright when I was 18, but I never really had a formal class in it. They just, taught me how to read like the Hebrew alphabet, and I took to it like lightning. Everyone was so amazed. I already read from the Torah for the first time in February 1999, and I had my adult bat mitzvah at the end of July 1999. A lot of other people, and it took them years to feel, comfortable reading Hebrew fluently, and obviously when I make Aliyah, I will have to become like much stronger in the language, but they do give you Ulpan, which is like 5 to 6 free months of like many hours a day. I don't know if it's like 5 or maybe 8 of like Hebrew immersion classes, and I will also need to learn Hebrew cursive because unfortunately I only know Hebrew print at the moment. And another language I've informally studied is like Dutch and Armenian, Georgian. I've also learned their alphabets, more ASL on my own, like Persian. My family used to have some Iranian friends back in the 80s and early 90s until they moved to Boston, but I'm now Facebook friends with the son in that family who's my age. Like, just so many languages I've learned on my own over the years. I absolutely love languages and would love to become a hyper polyglot eventually, fluent in like more than 10 languages, I believe a hyper polyglot is. And when I'm still lived in Albany, we had this custom at the Jewish Student Center during the counting of the Omer, which is, it starts on the second night of Pesach, Passover, and ends like 49 days later, like right before the holiday of Shavuot. And like, for example, like you would count like how many days in the Omer. Like, for example, today is 8 days. That is 1 week and 1 day of the Omer. And we would have a custom of counting it in as many languages as possible on Friday night services. And I would always volunteer to do it in German, Estonian, and Hungarian. And sometimes like the rabbi would, take the siddur, the prayer book around to you, like at the table where you were sitting, and you would like read it in English, Hebrew, and then like say it in the other language. But sometimes you would like, have to come up to him like he was like standing in that part of the room and, like say it in the own languages yourself. And that was like really helpful for my like self confidence. And I will be inserting some photos of myself with my Russian dictionary among the books I have. I do have several foreign language books that are unfortunately in storage. Oh, and as I mentioned in a previous video, I'm sorry if this is all over the place and rambling. I got this, like, I think in the late 2001. I don't remember which month exactly. It was a groundbreaking book by Hans H. Uterberg. He was like a linguist, and he wrote this like revolutionary approach to learning language. From the very first page of the book, you're like reading fluently in Latin. You like understand everything through the context and the pictures and little helpful like notes and such in the margins. I would like to have a more like full video on this book because it's just so wonderful. Like you can see, and like he's constantly building on what you know. So like by the end of the book, you're reading excerpts from actual like Latin poetry and stories and such like that. It's not just like, baby stuff. And I wish more foreign language teachers would do this instead of, oh, let's memorize vocabulary, like parts of the body and colors and musical instruments, and oh, let's memorize verb conjugations. And if it's a language that does this, declensions, the cases, depending on what position in the sentence a word is, it will have a different ending on it to like indicate the purpose it serves. Like, this is like a really cool thing, and I'm really looking forward to doing more with this book. One of my greatest regrets is that I never learned Latin, and I got this book to do the Latin exercises in because there are like multiple choice things and like, fill in the blanks at the end of every chapter. I really liked it because it has the constellations on it, and that's a very like Roman thing. They also, love their gods and goddesses, and many of them were like named after stars, or like the constellations like came from like mythology like that. Something really interesting. And I just, love foreign languages so much. I would like to have some more like videos discussing this topic in more depth. Yeah, I don't think I didn't bring any other books for that. 1001 numbers. Do you have a lucky number? Is there a story behind it? No. My lucky number is 11. I know this might shock a lot of people because I'm very pro science and such. It's like kind of like, finding out Sir Arthur Conan Doyle believed in that notorious fairies hoax during World War II. But, my master life number in Western numerology, adding up my birth date, the month, the day, and the year, it like ultimately adds up to 11, which is one of the two luckiest numbers you can have because it's like only the two like naturally occurring numbers in Western numerology that have two digits. The other is 22, which is also very auspicious, and that's why I just love the number 11, and also does occur in my life many times. I also love the numbers 9, 18, 7, and 13. Lucky number 13, like even though some people are like superstitious about it. And I would also love to, eventually have like 11 earrings on each ear. I have 4 in my right ear at the moment and 6 in my left ear, so there's still a bit to go. And like obviously like 11 times 2 is 22, which is another very auspicious number. I really love numbers, and I'm very, superstitious about inauspicious and auspicious numbers and dates. I know that seems like totally like irrational and superstitious, particularly because I pride myself on being scientific minded and guided by the principles of skeptical inquiry. But we can't be like that way about everything. Sometimes there's like one thing we believe in that doesn't fit, with the entire picture, as long as, we're not using that to substitute for actual like logic or medicine. It's just, something fun I believe in and like take a lot of stock in. 1001 authors. Do you have a favorite author and or genre? I've spoken many times before. Alexander Isayevich Solzhenitsyn of blessed memory is my favorite writer. One of my greatest regrets is that I never wrote him a letter in all the years our lifetimes overlapped to tell him how very, very much he meant to me. Like I thought he was going to live to be at least 100, just despite all those bastards who tried to shut him up. And like I was shocked he didn't even make it to 90. I mean, he like got really close, but I was just absolutely shocked. I thought I still had a lot of years left to like get up my courage and write to him, and I never can get that back. But he's just, more than a favorite writer, he's also one of my heroes and one of my literary idols. My second favorite writer that I've mentioned many times is Hermann Hesse. All his books are also in storage. It's been a while since I've read them, but he's just, got a huge influence on my life. I would love to, hang out with him in the other world. And I also love Anton Pavlovich Chekhov. I love his short stories. I've never read any of his plays, but his stories, I've just like taken to them naturally. They're so like fun and interesting. And Ivan Sergeyevich Turgenev is my fourth favorite writer. His novels are absolutely wonderful, and like just so many other writers I've loved over the years, and some of them are more than just like favorite writers. They're like literary idols or like heroes for me. Like for example, Bertolt Brecht, whom I did a poem by him in a very recent video, is also like more than a favorite writer. He's like a literary idol and one of my heroes. And I'm also like just so many other writers I love, but not favorites. But in my top 10, I should probably do some videos on all my favorite writers and how I chose them and what they mean to me and such like that. I know my favorite genre is historical fiction. I live and breathe historical fiction. I never got why some people think it's boring or stuffy or stupid. Like I just absolutely love reading about worlds in the past, and that's like 99% of everything I write is historical. Though I do also like soft sci-fi. Isaac Asimov was my introduction to science fiction in the 5th grade, and I just love imagining like future worlds too. Just like I love reading and writing about like past worlds. 1001 activities. Do you have a favorite outdoor activity? I absolutely love swimming, hiking, walking, horseback riding, badminton, and tennis. Like I've played tennis and badminton like many times over the years. But when I was with my ex, sometimes we would play it in his parents' front yard. He lived by his parents, and he so we couldn't really like play it anywhere else. But sometimes we would go to the nearby Schenectady JCC and use their tennis courts. And he was like, it was really stupid. He was like trying to tell me like I should use my racket in my right hand when I play like racket sports left-handed, and I'm predominantly left-handed. His grandparents, unfortunately, they bullied and shamed him out of his natural left-handedness, and his parents just let that happen. I'm like, no, dude, I play this with my left hand. Like one of the few things I do with my right hand is shoot pool and like brush my hair and like a few other things. Although I can still do all those things with my left hand as well. And I just love outdoor sports, like, well, at least the kinds I can do. I have some metal hardware in my right leg from my car accident, and I had 7 surgeries total, but only like 4 of them were on my leg. I had 3 plastic surgeries to remove some burn scar tissue from my stomach and abdomen. So unfortunately, I can't do all sports, but there are, still a lot of sports I can do, like for example, hiking and swimming and such. And it's also a really great way to lose weight and stay healthy. And I'm really eager to get back on a horse. The last time, it's been too long. Last time I was on a horse in September 2001, I fell off of a galloping horse. I was with an outdoor club from Hillel, and I severely bruised my back, couldn't lie down for over a month, and I had possible slight whiplash. But other than that, I was fine. I soon got back on the horse and finished the ride, with really impressed my friends and all the other people like on the horseback ride with me. And I also was not wearing a helmet at this time, so I guess I was lucky I wasn't injured more severely. But that's just like a really interesting story I have to tell. And just if a horse like throws you off or you fall off, just get back on and continue what you're doing. Don't just give up too easily. 1001 book clubs. Not a prompt, but a question for the comments. Should I start a 1001 book club with a book a month for read along? Sure, why not? If people are interested in that, presumably it would be, not a lot of pressure. You can just opt in and out if you want. Like maybe there's a book you're not interested in one month, or maybe you start reading it, but life gets in the way, or it's just like difficult for you to read like within the month, so you don't finish it on time. But as long as it, people are just, having fun and enjoying themselves, I don't see, why not. And this is for tagging at the end, but like I'm still trying to get a handle on who exactly is regularly watching my channel and leaving comments. So I guess anyone who's watching and hasn't done this yet and is interested, you guys can do that tag. And thank you very much for watching to the end. I hope this wasn't too rambling or scatterbrained or long-winded. I did several like versions of this, and I had to like abort them midway through because they just weren't going in the direction I liked. Hopefully this was a solid, like strong version of the video. And like please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Oh, and my next video possibly will be for one of my National Poetry Month poetry recitals I've been doing. I'll be reciting Sonnet 29 by Shakespeare, which inspired the title of this book. It's a really, really like beautiful sonnet. It like famously and beautifully ends with the lines, "For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to state, change my state with kings." It's just a lovely like sonnet and really like reflects the story. And so hopefully if you like poetry and poetry recitals, you'll watch that video, and I'll be doing some more tag videos during this coming month. So thank you very much for watching again. See you soon. Bye.